Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Golf Rules Questions podcast. My name's Roscoe, your co-host, sitting digitally alongside Blakey, the master of the Golf Rules Questions himself. Blakey, welcome back for another episode. How are you, sir?
Hey, Roscoe, how are you? Yeah, going well. Again, it's almost like the coronavirus update podcast. We're still inside and locked down in Victoria, so sad on us, but I think the numbers are coming down, so hopefully we'll be outside and out on the golf course very soon.
Well, the great news on that front is that it's only about 6 weeks until we will get onto the golf course again, so...
Well, we're counting down the days.
But who's counting anyway?
I hate that you put a number to it. Let's just say it's 6 days and go back to sleep.
Mikey, no one's here for Victoria's sad state of affairs of coronavirus update, but just in a public service announcement, wherever you are in the world, stay safe, look after each other, and be well. Reach out to someone if you do think that they need a bit of a pep up. You know, this is our way of pepping each other up. But if someone needs a pep up out there in your life, reach out to them. But wherever you are in the world, listen to this. And thank you to the listeners that have joined us from various parts of the world. We do get to see that, and we are enjoying the fact that the Golf Rules Questions podcast and the information that is contained within is being consumed around the world. We do appreciate you. Thank you very much. Now, this week's episode, there's a couple of quite topical golf rules questions areas for us to talk about, and the things that pop up from time to time. You know, you see them discussed in the commentary, you see them in the Twitters and all that sort of thing. So our job is to put some clarity and some perspective around that. Now, firstly,
yes,
very important, another public service announcement: the background bingo. It is a thing. We've decided. We've had a management meeting. Background bingo is a segment. I think it's called a segment in a podcast, and all the podcasts I'm involved in, we don't have segments, but this is a segment and it is a thing, and we're going to keep it going. So we do want you to participate. To participate in the background bingo, you need to flick over to the YouTube channel of Golf Rules Questions, the growing YouTube channel, the sensational resource for all things Golf Rules YouTube channel, and you need to look at us two mugs on the YouTube. It's basically this podcast video and put onto YouTube. Really simple. Watch it all. Watch it over there. Listen to the podcast and watch at the same time. You can see it's waxing on. But importantly, you get to play background bingo, because I put a lot of effort into getting to these places to take these pictures to do the background bingo. Not that that's a reason to play. And Blakey, well, he's a great internet savant, so he jumps onto the internet and chooses some pictures there. But the point is, we want you to have some fun. Have a look at this background. You can see if we will wobble from side to side. It's a little bit obscure. The only hints that I will give, and I think I'll make a feature of my pictures whenever I have something appropriate to give a hint, it is in the same part of same hemisphere as all of my previous backgrounds, which is the Northern Hemisphere. This one has an Australian connection, and it's another hint that I will give. It is a course where an Australian has won an amateur tournament, a significant amateur tournament, but an Australian has won an amateur tournament at this course. There you go. There's my hint. Blakey?
Well, I was actually thinking it was where you started school, Roscoe, but it does look like the first tee there somewhere. For my picture, it's actually a friend of mine, Henry Peters' work from Under the Card, digital production team there. And again, keeping in the Southern Hemisphere, close to where we are. So if anyone can guess that one, it's, looks quite nice in this early morning setting. So if you've played there, you possibly recognize it. So yeah, background bingo, it's a thing.
It is a thing. There we go. Hopefully, I'm not big on the sponsor thing type, but if someone did sponsor it, I think we could offer something there. But if you are good enough to engage with us on background bingo, there will be something for you at some stage along the line when we grow to, a real thing, a real podcast. Hey,
Or just, if Augusta wants to sponsor us, we're more than happy to put their picture in the background.
Augusta motorised carts. Maybe that's a topic of today's podcast, Blakey. There we go.
That's a good segue.
You mean the other Augusta, right? Man, sorry.
The segment into a segue. I like it, Roscoe. You're doing well.
Keep dreaming on the Augusta front, mate. Dream big. That's a good motivation for you, mate. Well done. So a few rulings this week that we will talk about.
Yes.
LPGA was played last weekend. Their first major. I don't know.
It was.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't.
No, sorry, it wasn't the first major, but it is a major. It's just not called like the US Open or the Open or anything like that. It's called the ANA Inspiration. It's played in the desert over in Palm Springs. It's played at Mission Hills, and wonderful course. Wonderful course.
Two courses there. Is
Two
that right?
courses there. I think it's called the West and the East or something like that.
Well, isn't one called the Diner something?
Oh, the Diner Shores. There we go. Here. So sorry, Blakey, just to put a bit of colour.
I haven't played there, but yes, I think someone in this podcast may have played there.
Well, I was just going to say, to put a bit of colour around it, it has been since 1987 since I did play there when I spent some time in the desert playing golf. And yeah, I was lucky enough to play that course. Dinah Shaw. Now, for those of you that are a little bit younger, once again, thank you for tuning in. Dinah Shaw was an American TV host. She had the Dinah Shaw Show, and she lived on the property there in Palm Springs at Mission Hills. So a lot of those courses out there, as you'll know, are gated communities, houses all around and golf courses woven in the middle of the desert, and they build these golfing oases. It's an unbelievable place that hopefully one day we'll all get to go and see again. We've discussed that, Blakey, that the GolfRules Questions road trip might have to take in Palm Springs because it's a fantastic place. But now there's a couple of things about the course that we will talk about in relation to the tournament. But the first thing, just to get us going and talking about Augusta carts, the caddies, the LPGA caddies were in carts.
Yeah, so
somewhere, not all, but some chose to ride in a cart. What happened there?
This was quite interesting because if we do get over to Palm Springs, let's make sure it's not in June, July, August, or September when the temperature is around the 45-degree mark. Let's any time outside of that, and it's going to be pretty nice weather. When it's cold and sort of Melbourne in May, maybe it'd be perfect in Palm Springs. But because of the heat, and also they've got some wildfires over there at the moment in California. I actually did some photos or videos that I've seen coming back did look very similar to Australia at the turn of the year, around December, January, when we had our wildfires. So they were concerned about the heat and the smoke. Now they did say to the players, carts for everyone, players and caddies, but the players said, no, this is a major championship. We want to walk, but for the caddies' sake, you can put them in carts if you want to. So that's what they did. So caddies driving carts, what does it really matter? They're just taking the bag somewhere. So I was pretty thought that was pretty good. Around the motorized transport, this is a sort of, you see this in club golf a lot more, where people have their own motorized carts or motorized buggies that they take to the course. In terms of the driving, the motorized transport carts, there is no rule that stops you, but a committee can bring in a local rule restricting motorized carts or people using motorized carts. So they could restrict it to a certain age. They could restrict it to someone who has a medical exemption, or anyone who has the money, can front up with the cash, can use one. It all depends on what the committee wishes. And in a lot of cases, it is a revenue stream for some clubs and courses. So they will definitely be allowing motorized carts. But the reason you don't usually see it in professional tour events is that they'll have a local rule restricting the use of motorized carts.
Yeah, I'm a member of one of those courses that has not, I'm not going to say flip-flop, but changed their cart policies over the year. You know, that was carts only with a medical exemption certificate. So, you know, if you had an injury, you could get access to a cart. They had very few carts there available, but now with the redevelopment of the course and putting in cart paths in appropriate areas, you know, it's made the course a lot more accepting of carts. You know, so I think that's one of the reasons that some of the sandbelt courses, you know, prefer not to have the use of carts, because, you know, you've got to put paths in, and, you know, that can be perceived as detracting from the overall look and environment of, you know, the typical sandbelt course. And, you know, you go to Scotland, you know, you don't see carts. You know, you don't see carts on the links anywhere except for maybe a couple of the big courses that have been, you know, taken over by certain US presidents and things like that. So so it is different in different places, but certainly now at my course, you know, they've got these cart paths, and carts are a thing. Now, the only time you don't see carts is when the weather is quite inclement and it's been wet. So once again, course management, course maintenance, just preserving the course, because the carts, when they're used inappropriately, can be restricting. So it was interesting to see the caddies and some caddies not using the cart to get around. It's I think if it's, I've got my own thoughts on it. You know, like I'm not sure that they should have used carts myself, but I might be a bit old school and hardline on that. You know, it's a team event. No, it's not a team event. It's an individual event, and why should it? But anyway, I've got my thoughts that it should just be get out there and get into it. But whatever's best for the players and the people that are working with them, that's their health and safety is the paramount there. I'm going to assume.
Well, it's interesting. We keep coming up with caddy issues every week, and we need to do our caddy issue, caddy episode. You know, you don't see them too much in our game. You know, just playing on a Saturday or a Wednesday, but you know, they feature nearly every week. And
did another one have to? Marcus Armitage on the European tour. Did we get to the bottom of what happened there? I just remember it popped up into my mind. He ended up pulling his buggy for a part of his round. His caddy bit the dust. Did you?
Yeah, I only just saw a little bit of that, but it was very similar to the Scotty Scheffler of a couple of weeks ago, where the caddy pulled up limp because he just couldn't. He had a bit of an injury and had to pull out. So the player had, you know, he's got his big 12-inch staff bag or whatever it is, had to put it on a cart and wheel it with him. You know, and we saw that girl Lindsay Weaver, which we played a shot of hers for if the ball was hold or not, and she carried or pulled her bag the whole of the first women's major of the year, the Women's British Open, the AIG. And so, yeah, she carried her bag or pulled her bag the whole 4 rounds. But I'll just jump in really quickly with that. The ANA Inspiration usually is in March and usually is the first major of the year. And that's why we got a little bit mixed up. It wasn't the first major of this year, but it usually is.
Thanks for that clarification. Now, more importantly, let's get to some real rules. Let's get to some rules. Imbroglios. We'll put the pronunciations. We've got another new potential segment coming up too. Stay tuned for that. But the 18th hole on the course that they played, we'll find the name out. The 18th hole is surrounded by a moat, a lake at the back, a lake at the front, or a pond at the front, colloquially termed Poppy's Pond, and it's a par 5. So obviously the advantage there is if you can clear that, sort of Augusta-esque moat and get it onto the green and hold the green, then you've got a great advantage for maybe going for a birdie and obviously getting the result that goes with that. Now, as I said, the pond it's an island green. So that's the easiest way to describe a green that has a pond at the front, back, and sides as an island green appropriately, Ross. Thank you very much for reminding yourself. The sponsor's board at the back of the green. There's no stands. There's no, corporate VIP tents. There's nothing like that. We've spoken about this before when, I hit my ball on the par 5 at the Australian into the bleachers there and got a free drop. But it was purely just a board, like a blue sponsor's colouring board. And I think it was used inappropriately. It got a lot of discussion happening. What do you think, Blakey?
Personally, it's just trying to work out the difference between that and a grandstand, because the grandstand is normally there, and players could use the grandstand the way they did use the wall on the weekend or during the whole tournament. Personally, I didn't like it because it looked ugly, and it looked like you're actually taking away from the design of the hole. But the argument is, well, what's the difference between the grandstand and that? And really, there is no difference. The wall was longer, and so it actually, if you did hit it a little bit left, it was going to stop your ball, where a grandstand wouldn't actually be and wouldn't stop your ball. And it was a little bit closer to the green as well. So that was a very sort of interesting way that they did that. They had a bit more room behind that they could have moved it back. So I'm not sure why they had to have it so close and so wide. I didn't like it. I thought it took away from the tournament because some of the players actually just used it to hit their ball into and get a free drop, which really takes away from the design of that hole. And if you sort of hit a bad drive but still have a shot where you can clear the first water and just smack it into the backboard and know that your ball's just going to sort of stay there, that doesn't really sound like golf to me. So yes, it's a temporary immovable obstruction. Players are entitled to free relief. It was the same for all players for the whole 4 days. So yep, that's consistent. But did it look good? No, it looked horrible. Yeah.
Well, essentially, you could argue that the tournament was decided around, the use of that back wall as a way to gain an advantage. Miriam Lee on the 18th hole, and her caddy, I think, is on record somewhere. I haven't heard it, but saying that, they used that as a strategy to blast, whether it was a fairway or a hybrid, I can't remember what she hit, but, obviously a club long enough to clear the water, get onto the green and have no risk. She got a free drop from that and she chipped it in for an eagle and made the playoff and then went on to win. And Brooke Henderson, got some advantage out of it too. She was also in the playoff and unfortunately didn't win. But, it's
spot on.
It's just a strange one that exists in the world of professional golf. It keeps popping up from the listeners, talking about the differences between the professional game and the amateur game. We get our own, versions of it, I guess, with clubhouses and other things that, that are at the back of par 5 greens. Once again, go back to Mornington. Now, there's an example that can just sort of flow in and put a different bit of a sort of real golfers, everyday golfers perspective. Mornington Golf Club have just gone through a bit of a redesign of their 2 finishing holes where they had to move the green complexes away from the clubhouse.
Right.
Now, it was a safety thing. They wanted to extend the members' spike bar area, and it was quite a nice place to stand up there on the hill overlooking the bay, looking back to Melbourne. And at the end of a competition round, you would have very social club, members love staying around for a drink after the round and having a dollar bet with each other. And, there'd be 40 or 50 people standing around outside of the club area near the green. So they had to move the green complexes away. But, you could quite often, be dodging a rocketed
Hot dot.
Hot dot, being knuckleballed through the back of the green and bouncing into the clubhouse. So it was a safety thing. But once again, if you got into there, then you got some relief. But there's a whole load of different examples like that exist around golf. But in the professional game, it exists. We're not going to change it, but that's what happened. If you were wondering what happened and why there was a big blue sign there, it was A, for the sponsors, B, because it's always there as a grandstand, and C, because they didn't want to change it for the players from year to year. The inspiration, A&A inspiration, is not a course that changes rotation, so it's the same every year, so they wanted to recreate that. There you go.
Well, although it's very funny because when you say it was for the sponsors, there was hardly any sponsors' actual name and signs on the big blue wall. It was just a big blue wall. So I think they may have missed out there on an opportunity to get the sponsor's name in the camera.
Well, Blakey, when A&A Nippon Airlines are sponsoring this segment of the podcast, we can give them that advice, all right?
Yeah, that'll be my background bingo. So, there was another incident around that 18th, and all the Australians would have seen it and gone, what's the go there? Poppy's Pond has a bit of a diving board, or they do actually have a name sponsor thing that, when someone jumps into the pond, you can see A&A inspiration. And Catherine Kirk's ball actually came to rest against it on the 18th, on the final round, and people wondering why she didn't get relief. If it was an immovable obstruction, she wouldn't be entitled to free relief regardless. So she'd either have to take penalty relief or play the ball as it lies. This was actually a temporary immovable obstruction, meaning that when the tournament's not there, that stand or stage or platform, let's call it a platform, wouldn't normally be there. It's a temporary immovable obstruction. And again, going to your point, if we talk about the difference between tours and amateur golf, temporary immovable obstructions are a big difference between amateurs and professional golf, with the temporary structures of grandstands, TV towers, hoardings, sponsor signs type thing. So that was there. It was a temporary immovable obstruction. Now, for a temporary immovable obstruction, you can get free relief when your ball is in a penalty area, but you must stay in the same penalty area, meaning that you work out your point, and it's not nearest point of complete relief. You just work out your point where you have no interference. You add a club length, and then you get to drop within the next club length. And so they provide that information to Catherine. This is where you could drop. She didn't like that. Not that she didn't like that they gave her that option, just she didn't like the option, because that would have maybe dropped her into a spot where she could have had interference with something in her backswing, or the ball could have dropped and rolled into the water and still been in within her relief area, and then now she's absolutely trollocked. So she just didn't choose that option and then played a pretty nice shot in what she did. So that's the difference. And we might have to do a further segment on this about immovable versus temporary immovable obstructions. Recent sort of situations around this. Sergio, I think it was it last year or 2 years ago? It might have been 2 years ago. He had a similar situation in one of the FedEx Cup events. Might have been the BMW. And he actually said that he had interference with a temporary immovable obstruction whilst in the penalty area in a shot that I don't think was reasonable, but these guys are professionals. He wanted to hit it into a rock to ricochet back onto the green. And he said, in trying to play this shot, I have interference with my knee, which doesn't sound reasonable. If definitely doesn't sound reasonable for us. But anyway, they granted him relief. He got the free drop in the penalty area. It dropped rolled forward, so he had to place it, and then he actually ended up turning around and hitting it the normal way onto the green and made 5 and got into the top 30. So it must have been the top 70 tournament, and he ended up making the top 30 after that, or got into the top 70, whichever one it was, by making par. And another one, which just happened last year, was Bryson DeChambeau. He was in a penalty area and had interference with the grandstand, got to take his ball to another part of the penalty area, which gave him the least amount of interference, which I'm not sure how you can get the least amount of interference from a grandstand, but if the grandstand's in your way, it's in your way. But he got to take it to a least amount, basically where he could actually make a stroke instead of the other position, which he could probably just chip out. And so he dropped it there and hit it over the grandstand, and ended up, at least saving par or bogey on that one as well. So that's the situation around the Catherine Kirk at the back of, or right-hand side of 18.
Poppy's Pond. Poppy's Pond looks different to these days than it did in 1987 when I was there playing. They've actually made Poppy's Pond the part that they dive into. After someone did actually dive into it, the players dove into it. They made Poppy's Pond into a pool. So if you look at it in the island view, you've got the part where they dive into, which is like a chlorinated pool, and the rest of it is the moat. Back in the day, there wasn't a pool there. You just dove in, just got into Poppy's Pond.
Yeah, well, it's clear water now. It's absolutely clear. You're right. It might as well put a spa path in there as well.
They made it like a pool.
I mean, it's a big thing to jump into the pond. They have the dressing gown ready. They have towels ready. It's not like someone holds their putt and then runs over and jumps into Poppy's Pond. They hold their putt. Great. This is great. Congratulations. It's about 15 minutes later that they actually, have you taken your tees out of your pocket? Have you taken your glove off? We've got some slippers ready for you. We've got your dressing gown. We've got your towel, and then they jump in. So it's a whole thing now. It's all part of being a winner, is to get to jump into that pond.
Maybe I'm an old curmudgeon, mate, but not a fan.
Now
not a fan of stage celebrations. Put it that way. I'm a fan of unstaged celebrations, and probably the first couple of times, the original Poppy's Pond dive was the thing. And then a couple after that, because, the caddies seem to get more involved, and, there's a couple of little honeypot bombs and a couple of little horsey bombs going on. The caddies probably provide the best entertainment for the Poppy's Pond. I'd rather see the caddies dive in. Miriam Lee did not want to get into Poppy's Pond. She did not want to jump in.
Which is funny, because it would have been 110 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 45 degrees Celsius, or 38 degrees Celsius, which is hot. So, I would have, if I was there, I would have been jumping in, if I wasn't the winner. But so the first time it sort of happened, it was all fun and games, and then it started becoming a tradition. I think Kari's jumped in there as well.
Yeah, she had a crack. Kari, she went with the honeypot bomb, like sort of knees up. Boom. That was good.
I think
the Aussie way, but that was the Aussie way. Yeah, you'd have to expect that. Anyone that's grown up around an Australian outdoor swimming pool at school holiday time is gonna drop a big bomb in there.
Yeah, that's good point. But on the wasn't there someone on the PGA Tour that tried to do that at another different course, and they actually ended up breaking their leg and being out for 9 months?
Yeah, there was. Now,
can you remember that? Who it is?
No, I can't remember. It was significant, but we'll come back to that. If you do think I'm an old curmudgeon for not being a massive fan of the staged Poppy's Pond diving, let me know. Happy to take your feedback. Maybe you can come on and debate staged rehearse presentation stage divings.
Yeah, they should have climbed the wall and jumped off the wall into the other side.
Now that would have been a new take. Like get onto the bridge.
Yeah,
come off the bridge. Do something different. Just
yeah.
Poor old Miriam Lee. She didn't want to get in. Did not want to get in. Anyway, enough of that.
I got one more ruling.
One more ruling. Yes, go.
At the LPGA, at the A&A Inspiration. We talked about, which episode 7 just dropped, and we talked a lot about provisional balls. Now, this player, well, obviously hasn't been watching my YouTube about provisional balls, but she ended up carding an 8, and it was because she hit her ball, which she thought possibly was lost outside a penalty area. Didn't call her next one a provisional. So hits it off the tee, then finds her original ball and hits her original ball. What is that original ball in relation to her play, Roscoe, on the spot?
The original ball's in play.
The provisional ball's in play.
The provisional ball's in play.
Because it wasn't a provisional, because she didn't actually say it was a provisional ball.
Oh.
So what is the original ball?
Lost.
Yep, spot on. As soon as you play that second ball off the tee, the original ball is lost, and the original ball now becomes a wrong ball. So 1 off the tee, stroke and distance for the second ball, 3 off the tee, hits the wrong ball. That's an extra 2, so that's 5. Now she's playing her provisional ball from the middle of the fairway, playing her 6th shot. So pretty disappointing that she wouldn't, or they wouldn't know that rule.
Horrendous mistake. Like, you only have to be reminded once by one of your fellow club competition players, you need to declare that a provisional ball, son, or that will be a penalty enforced with you by me. You only have to be reminded that once in your life to never forget the rule that you have to just tell your playing partners that it is a provisional ball.
Spot on.
How do they not know that? How do they not do that?
I don't understand how, and this comes back to caddies as well. I don't understand how the caddy doesn't jump in and say, make sure you call it a provisional. I would have thought that a caddy, that would be, A, it should be the player's job, responsibility, but B, the caddy should definitely be backing that up.
Is one of the other players allowed to say,
yes,
oh, that's your provisional ball?
Absolutely, and they should.
Yeah,
but it's not their responsibility, and
it's not
because the player. The other players might be thinking that that person doesn't want to hit a provisional ball. And that's why you have to announce it, because you don't. It's an option. You can hit a provisional ball when you're allowed to, or you can just play another one off the tee.
But either way, you tell people what you're doing. This is this.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's a provisional ball. I'm not going to worry about that one. This is my ball in play from now on.
Really simple stuff.
Yeah, that's good call.
I'd be filthy at the other players. It's not their responsibility, but they would have known what was going on and what was about to happen. But anyway, that's not for me at all.
I'd be filthy at myself. That's who I'd be.
Yeah,
filthy
at. Absolutely. I'd be filthy at the caddy. Let's blame the caddies.
Yeah, caddy, get him on. Let's get him on.
Caddies again. Okay, mate. Any other rulings? Anything else? The big week coming up this week. There's probably going to be something emanating out of the US Open at Winged Foot. So we'll be keenly watching that and seeing any professional rulings there.
There will definitely be something happening this week, especially how tough that thing is.
Rough looks very juicy. Had a look at Lucas Herbert playing some short game work out of the rough there. It looks very, 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 very juicy. What else? We got anything else, mate?
No, we're all good. I think we were going to introduce a new segment, but we've already ticked over our time.
No. Let's talk about it. Let me just bring it up here. So
come on, mate. One of our fan favourites.
Let me just bring it up here. You sent it through to me. What have we got here?
Well, as I said, one of our listeners hasn't asked a question. He's actually given us some assistance. Now, I must admit, I am not the best when it comes to pronouncing foreign names. And to be honest, I'm probably not the best when it comes to pronouncing English names either. Sometimes I can't even remember how to pronounce my own name. So I totally agree with this listener sending this through, because I need all the assistance I can get. So I appreciate the listener sending this through. And if anyone, or if this listener does hear me pronounce any word, English or Mandarin, whatever it is, please let me know, and we will bring it up in future episodes. So roll with it, Roscoe.
Well, it has given us cause to have another, let's call it a segment, and it might not be a weekly feature, but it will be a feature whenever we ourselves absolutely have to call an Ivor on ourselves, and we'll also use that in reference to any of the commentary that we might pick up that might end up on your YouTube channel, which everyone should go and look at. The commentary and the pronunciation of names and words that are incorrect, because we won't we'll just leave it as Ivor. And I think it's a great name for it, because one of the great orators in tournament golf history, the wonderful Scotsman Ivor Robson, who was one of the most mimicked, accents, one of the most loved accents, one of the most loved features of the European tour for many, many years, retired a couple of years ago, Ivor Robson. He's the guy that would be, the high pitch. We might get an Ivor Robson impersonator one day to help us with the Ivors. But anyway,
I'm sure you can give it a go.
No, I might know his cousin that lives down by the side Leaf Links in Scotland. Don't worry.
Next to the tee, Ross Flanagan.
Like, you just leave that stuff to me, all right? You let me organise Ivor's cousins down at Leaf Links. Next to bloody James Braid's cousins and all of those guys. You leave that to me, all right? But thank you very much for the correction on the pronunciation. Now, it all stemmed from my use of the word imbroglio, which Ivor correctly points out that the word imbroglio excited both of you a week or two back. But guess you may not have realised it's from Italian. And one of the rules in Italian is that the G before another consonant is usually silent. So imbroglio equals imbroglio.
Imbroglio.
Just like gnocchi. Foreign golfer names were highlighted as a bit of a no-go area. So below is my quick guide, if you think you might need it, for the correct pronunciation of the names. And Ivor's just given us the correct pronunciation, spelt out with the highlighted consonants and vowels and everything, the way that for example, some of my favourites, the Spanish. And I think this is where it started. Blakey, you got stuck.
I was not going to say his name. I just no chance.
You got stuck on Rafa Cabrera Bello.
Yeah.
And as do most, Aussies and a lot of Americans and whatever, Cabrera Bello, they pronounce the double L, but it's Bello. Like,
no, I was more scared about the Cabrera bit.
Cabrera.
Yeah.
Cabrera Bello. But yeah, for me, I grew up with Ballesteros.
Oh yes, right.
Listen to the use in Ballesteros, but it would always get Ballesteros. But the one that's most relevant to me is my good friend and playing partner from the 2018 Vic Open Pro-Am, George Campillo.
Georgie.
Is that not right?
Apparently not.
If you do run with the George Campillo, well, you would be a recipient of an Ivor from this point forward. We're going to call it an Ivor in tradition of both Ivor and Ivor Robson, but it'd be Jorge. So his first name is Jorge, Jorge, and Campillo, spelled Campillo, Campillo.
Yeah, because I thought you were talking about one of our rugby players for a second.
No, not George Campillo from the New Zealand the All Blacks back row. No. So yeah, there's a whole list here, and
is there a Jesus on there?
Excuse my phone. That's someone trying to ring me. There's not Jesus. There's a Jose.
Oh yes.
Jose.
Yeah, Josie.
Jose.
Josie.
But here, Ivor correctly and very appropriately says, with a bit of guttural from the throat, the G and the H. Check via Google Translate. So I would go, hothe.
Ah, right.
Ivor, if you are listening, I hope you are, and thank you very much for this. It really gave me a nice chuckle and something to read. And I actually pride myself on my international pronunciations. German is my second language. No habla español, no parle italiano, no parlez-vous français, ein bisschen Deutsch. What else?
Meine deutsche Scheißen.
少し日本語話しましたす。ありがとうございました。どうぞよろしく。
Not bad.
Hey.
Is this the Golf Rules Questions podcast or the Roscoe translates?
Well, you're going to have to do something and show everyone the Ivors. You might have to put it in a newsletter, but yeah, anyway. Ivor, thanks for that.
No, thank you very much, Ivor. And, we appreciate all our listeners. A couple of episodes we had Big P and now we've got Ivor. Listener engagement is exactly what we want for this podcast.
Ivor, I want to know Viegas. Why do the Americans go Vijagas? There you go. Ivor, come back to us on that. Viegas. Blakey,
It's been fun.
Is that us for another episode?
That is us, and I'm sure, as you said, we will have a big episode for the US Open next week.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in. It's been fun. Thanks for listening to us. Have a little bit of laughs and giggles with our segments. It will be a regular feature, and hopefully that's what stands us out as something worthwhile listening to and sharing. Please share. Please leave us a review over at iTunes.
Review.
Go to the YouTube channel. Hit Blakey up on Instagram. He's a sensation out there. Once again, thanks for listening to the Golf Rules Questions podcast.
Cheers, guys.